Hi, Danny. Welcome to our PowerPoint on bipolar disorder, which focuses on section 2, chapters 9 and chapters 12 in Lab Girl. I want to talk about this for a number of reasons. There's some interesting things that Hope does as far as her um, writing style and format in these chapters. And I think it's also interesting how she weaves in her own story with the science here. And I think there are some interesting pieces to discuss. So in chapter 9 on page 144, Hope starts with full blown mania lets you see the other side of death. Its onset is profoundly visceral and unexpected, no matter how many times you've been through it. It is your body that first senses the urgency of a new world about to bloom. Your vertebrae seem to detach from one another, and you elongate as if towards the sun's light. You can't hear above the sloshing roar of blood pushed through your head by some impossibly sustained orgasm within your beating heart. For the next 24, 48, 72 hours, you will have to yell to hear yourself over this whooshing. Nothing can be loud enough or bright enough or move fast enough. The world appears as if through a fisheye lens. Your view is fuzzy with sparkling edges. You have received a grand systemic injection of Novocaine and your entire body tingles briefly before it becomes flaccidly foreign and unreal. Your raised arms are the fleshy petals of a magnificent lily bursting into a flower. It deeply dawns on you that this new world about to bloom is you. Well, Hope doesn't know it for a long time, but she suffers from bipolar disorder, is what we call it now. They used to call it being manic depressive. Bipolar or manic depressive disorder is a cyclical disorder. It involves high energy states that can last up to a few days, sleeplessness, hallucinations, psychosis. Sometimes people in a mania state will believe that someone is after them. Sometimes they'll believe they hear voices. They can be very hyper focused for many hours at a time. And these types of mania or these high level of functioning that she described is interchanged with cycles of depression, which Hope goes through with Bill in chapter 12. And in the cycles of depression, the person may also be unable to sleep, will be haunted by the fact that they're never going to reach their dreams, that they're a complete failure. In Hope's case, that she would never get the grant money. Sometimes they can be suicidal. And in between these times of high energy and depression, they have long, sometimes normal periods. More than 4 of these episodes of mania in a year is considered high frequency. People with bipolar disorder vary in the number and types and strengths of episodes. Men and women experience the mania and the depression differently. Diagnosis usually happens between the age of 15 and 24, usually not in small children. Also, it is not something that is like a degenerative or an Alzheimer's type disorder of the brain that happens after 65. It can run in families. They do think there are some genetic triggers, but it also may not. They do believe it has something to do with how the brain is formed and how connections are made. Most people who suffer from bipolar disorder require hospitalization at least at one point in their lives. A lot of them have trouble in social situations, with relationships. A lot of them abuse alcohol or drugs in order to try to control the mania, or they may have trouble in school. Treatment, which Hope will talk about in the book, includes a combination of medications, including antidepressants, psychotic drugs, different types of things to try to control the mood swings, also psychotherapy, which is also called talk therapy, where they work with a psychologist to understand when the mania is hitting and what to do. And then there's electroconvulsive therapy, which is electric shocks done to the brain to try to again alter and shift the mood. My grandfather suffered from bipolar disorder, and I have to say that reading chapter 9 was kind of hard for me the first time I did it, because my images growing up with him is that he was um, kind of scary. I didn't understand why he would go through those episodes, why he would be loving and at a holiday dinner and perfectly fine, and everyone would be happy. And then in a couple months, he would decide not to take his medication, which is a huge trigger for another mania session. And he would board up the windows and steal the pendulums and the clocks and change the locks. And my grandmother couldn't get in the house. And it really was a sense of frustration for the family. But reading this chapter really helped me understand and look at mania through someone's eyes. And I can see if you felt like you were imminently going to make a breakthrough in your career, or that you saw the world as a completely different place, and it was for a few hours or sometimes days, this magical high. I can understand why taking medication and trying very hard to flatten that out, where sometimes you would miss that, much like a drug addict. Um, I don't think I would have understood that at 10 with my grandfather, but it made a lot more sense after I read this. I want you to go ahead and look at chapter 9 and chapter 12, and I have a couple of questions for you. I won't give you the odd pauses, but if you would talk about them a little bit as a group, that'd be great. First of all, I want to point out that although the rest of the book is written in first person, this section is written in second person, or using the pronoun you. Think about for a minute why she chose to do that here. Also think about what would have happened if she would have talked about her bipolar disorder in the very beginning. Would that have made a difference in how you saw her or how you read this book? And what would have been the difference? After you have a chance to talk about those, I would ask that you go ahead and do your 7-minute writing session, and then go out and do your field note. You can have the rest of the class time to read. I did put a couple of notes in as far as what would be covered in the quiz over section 2 on Wednesday, but I do want you to go ahead and read 1 through 6 in section 3. And I will say, hope does fall in love. So I hope you have a great day. Thanks.